What if everything you've been told about death isn't the full truth? What if, behind the comforting stories of the afterlife, lies a truth far more profound than anything you've been led to believe? What if death doesn't free you, but recycles you? Most people never dare to ask these questions. They follow the path laid out before them, believing they are walking into freedom, when in truth, they may be stepping into the oldest trap in the cosmos. The Gnostics whispered of it long ago. They claimed that the world itself was not the creation of a loving God, but of an impostor, an arrogant architect, a false ruler known as the Demiurge. And according to them, this same being has built an endless wheel of birth and death, a reincarnation cycle that entraps souls back into this matrix reality. But here's the more important question. If the afterlife is a trap, then what happens to you when you die? And more importantly, how do you escape it? This is not the kind of knowledge you'll find in a Sunday sermon or a brightly packaged self-help book. It's not the love and light story of the New Age movement. This is the knowledge that was suppressed, buried, and branded as heresy, because if too many souls remembered it, the prison itself would begin to crumble. In this video, we'll explore how the Gnostics understood death, not as a doorway to freedom, but as the moment when the soul could be captured and recycled. You'll see why they believed reincarnation isn't the path of spiritual progress we've been told, but the very mechanism of the trap, and the hidden signs that reveal when you're being lured back into it. Most people will never hear this. Most will keep walking toward the light, unaware of who built it or why. Perhaps the prison of the Demiurge is not confined to this world at all, but stretches even beyond death itself, a hall of mirrors, tricking your soul into returning again and again, replaying life after life. What if death is not the end, not the beginning, but the greatest illusion of all? Because the truth you're about to hear won't just change how you see death, it may hand you the very keys to escape the prison that has bound humanity since the very beginning. Long before our modern religions took shape, the ancient world was alive with whispers of hidden realms, rival gods, and secret knowledge, and among them, the Gnostics offered a warning unlike any other. In the desert caves of Nag Hammadi in Egypt, hidden away until their discovery in 1945, lay texts that shattered the comfortable stories told by priests and emperors. These were the Gnostic writings, fragments of a spiritual tradition that dared to say, the world you see around you is not the true creation of the real God. The Gnostics spoke of a higher, infinite realm, the pleroma, where pure light and consciousness dwell. From this fullness emerged Sophia, the embodiment of divine wisdom. Yet in her yearning to create on her own, moved by curiosity, by desire, by a solitary act apart from the source, she brought forth a flawed being, the Demiurge. The Demiurge, ignorant of the greater realms above him, declared himself the only God. He shaped matter into a vast, glittering prison, populating it with Archons, cosmic wardens who govern the planets, stars, and cycles of human life. Here lies the heart of the Gnostic warning. According to them, the soul is not meant to endlessly cycle through birth and death. True life belongs in the eternal realms of light, not in the shadows of this material world. Yet the Demiurge's system recycles souls, binding them to the wheel of reincarnation, so they continue to fuel his dominion. This claim was radical for its time. In nearly every religion of the ancient world, whether the pagan cults of Rome or the rising Christian church, death was portrayed as a passage into divine reward or punishment. But the Gnostics dared to say something far more unsettling, that death itself could be the snare. Other traditions carried echoes of this. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, known as the Bardo Thodol, the soul is warned of dazzling lights and illusions that appear after death, designed to lure it back into rebirth. Even the early Christian thinker Origen entertained the idea of pre-existence and cycles of embodiment. teachings later condemned as heresy. But why such eagerness to erase these teachings? Because fear of death is the strongest chain of all, and once a soul breaks it, it slips beyond control. A soul convinced it must return again and again to learn lessons is a soul unlikely to rebel. But a soul that remembers that it was never meant to be trapped, that it belongs to eternity, becomes dangerous. Dangerous not only to the rulers of this world, but to the Demiurge itself. The Gnostics saw themselves as exiles, wanderers in a counterfeit creation, carrying the spark of a forgotten origin. Their mission was not to perfect the cycle, but to break free from it, and their texts offered cryptic instructions for how the awakened could navigate death without falling for the luminous snares of the Demiurge. And here's the deeper question. If the reincarnation cycle is a prison, how is it maintained? How does the Demiurge ensure that nearly every soul keeps returning? And what signs reveal when you are being pulled back into his system? The answer may expose not only the hidden motives of ancient religion, but even the illusions woven into today's New Age movement. When your final breath leaves your body, when the world of form dissolves, and suddenly you are free of weight, free of pain, floating in a vast and luminous expanse, what happens next? According to countless near-death stories, the first thing you see is a light, radiant, irresistible. It draws you closer. Loved ones appear, smiling, calling your name. A warmth fills you, and for a moment, you are certain, this is heaven, this is home. But the Gnostics would interrupt this scene with a warning. Be careful, soul, for not all that shines is light. According to their vision, what many call the afterlife is often the opening gate of the cycle. The tunnel of light is a construction, a luminous snare woven by the Archons to recycle you back into the cycle of death and rebirth. The comforting voices may not be your ancestors at all, but projections, illusions crafted to keep you from questioning where you truly are. The Gnostic texts never used the modern phrase reincarnation trap, but they did warn that souls, if deceived, could be captured and cast back into new bodies. Why? Because the Demiurge's system feeds on return. Each time you incarnate, you forget who you are. Each lifetime erases the memory of your divine origin. And while you struggle with pain, desire, fear, and distraction, the Archons tighten their hold. In today's language, that is exactly what many would call a reincarnation wheel. Think of it as a cosmic game of hypnosis. The moment you die, you awaken briefly, only to be lulled back into sleep. Just as a dream fades when you wake, the memory of your soul's freedom fades when you return to the body. The Gnostic texts often describe this in symbolic terms. The hypostasis of the Archons speaks of rulers who bind humanity in forgetfulness. The Apocryphon of John describes how the Demiurge fashioned the soul's prison, surrounding it with layers of deception. The Pistis Sophia hints at the perilous journey of the soul through realms of judgment and false lights. And yet, ask yourself this: why does the light appear so irresistible? Why do souls return so willingly? Here lies the genius of the illusion. It appeals to your deepest longing. The longing to be safe, to be loved, to belong and be reunited with Source. What better bait than the faces of those you cherished in life? What stronger tether than the promise of reunion? But the Gnostics urged vigilance. They believed that beyond the false light lies a greater radiance, the true light of the pleroma, which cannot be faked. In their cosmology, that radiance belonged to the aeons, divine emanations of the Source, streams of living light flowing from the pleroma. To know the difference between the counterfeit glow and the true light of the aeons was, for the Gnostics, the very key to liberation. The difference is subtle but profound. The false light dazzles and demands, while the true light awakens and liberates. This is why they spoke of gnosis, direct knowledge, inner remembrance. because without awareness, how would you know the difference? And so the question deepens. If the Demiurge's snare lures the soul with comfort and illusion, then how does the cycle of reincarnation actually unfold? What forces pull you back into the prison of flesh? And what role do karma and judgment truly play? Unraveling these questions may reveal the very knowledge the Gnostics guarded as sacred and open before you, the hidden path to freedom. If the first part of the illusion is seduction, the dazzling light, the false reunion, then the second part is entanglement. The Gnostics taught that after death, the soul does not simply drift freely. Instead, it encounters powers, the Archons, who act as gatekeepers. These forces question, judge, and weigh the soul, not to guide it toward liberation, but to bind it more tightly to the cycle of matter. You've heard the phrase life review. Countless near-death experiences describe being shown their deeds, feeling their emotions replayed, and being told that they must learn more lessons. But here's the hidden question. Who is conducting this review? The Gnostics would say this judgment does not come from the true source, but from the counterfeit rulers of this world. Judgment, even when it feels like it comes from the soul itself, is still part of the illusion. By convincing the soul that it has failed, that it must return to correct its mistakes, the Archons ensure the cycle of reincarnation never ends. Perhaps the real hell isn't fire and torment at all, but something else entirely. Perhaps the true hell is returning to earth again and again, reliving life without ever truly ascending. Think of it as a cosmic courtroom where the judge, jury, and prosecutor are all part of the same system. You are convinced of your guilt, sentenced to return, and told it is for your growth, when in truth, it is for their dominion. And what about karma? In the Gnostic perspective, karma is not divine justice, but programming, a set of cords and weights that pull the soul back into density. Each action creates echoes, yes, but the system is designed to entangle you in those echoes, to keep you orbiting the same loops. It appears as a school, but in truth, it is a cage. Here lies the radical departure from other traditions. Hinduism and Buddhism teach that reincarnation is a path of learning, ultimately leading to liberation. But the Gnostics flipped the script. Reincarnation itself is the problem. Liberation comes not by playing the game well, but by refusing to play it altogether. This is why they spoke of remembering secret words, hidden names, and divine seals, mystical passwords that allowed the awakened soul to bypass the Archons. The first apocalypse of James describes how the soul, upon meeting these rulers, must not cower, but declare its origin in the realms of light. Only then can it ascend beyond their grasp. So here's the paradox. The cycle is maintained through ignorance, but the key is remembrance. The more you identify with the roles you've played, this body, this personality, this history, the easier it is to be recycled. But when you recall that your essence comes from beyond the stars, beyond the Demiurge's domain, the illusion begins to falter and dissolve altogether. How many times have you felt déjà vu, as if you've lived this life before? How many times have you sensed that the world itself is scripted, looping, staged? Perhaps those are not just quirks of memory, or what people call glitches in the matrix, but ripples of the cycle, echoes of the trap itself. The question then is not only what the trap is, but how to escape it. How does an awakened soul navigate death without being drawn back into the wheel? The Gnostics believed the answer to this may be their most important teaching of all. So if the Demiurge's trap is real, if death itself is the doorway to a recycling system, what can you actually do about it? The Gnostics never intended this knowledge to be abstract. It was a map, a guide for those who dared to awaken in a world of sleep. And the first step is not about waiting for death. It's about remembering now. Ask yourself, who am I beyond this body? beyond this story, beyond the roles I play. Each time you peel back a layer, the hold loosens. For the Demiurge can only bind what identifies with form. It can only ensnare the self that vibrates at its frequency, the self that clings to labels, fears, and unfinished desires. This is why the Gnostics spoke of cultivating gnosis, direct inner knowing, meditation, prayer, deep contemplation, even moments of silent awareness, watching your own thoughts. These were not empty rituals. They were training grounds, rehearsals for the soul. When you learn to hold presence in the now, you are less likely to be deceived by the dazzling illusions later. Here's a practice. The next time you close your eyes, imagine the tunnel of light before you. Feel its pull. Hear the voices calling. Then ask, is this true light or a projection? Practice discerning. Feel the difference between something that dazzles and something that awakens, between something that demands and something that liberates. This inner rehearsal plants seeds of remembrance that may bloom when the moment comes. The Gnostics also whispered about passwords and seals, symbols of inner authority. You may not need literal secret words, but you do need recognition. Recognition that you are a child of the infinite source, not a subject of the Demiurge. Recognition that you belong to the pleroma, not the prison. That recognition, held firmly, is itself a key. So live as if you are already beyond the trap, detached from cycles of fear, from endless seeking of external validation. Practice this by releasing earthly attachments, by letting illusions dissolve, by remembering that your essence cannot be harmed. When you begin to live this way, life itself changes. You stop fearing death because you recognize it as just another mask. You stop clinging to reincarnation as a path of growth and begin tasting freedom even here. The Gnostic path is not about escaping the world through despair, but about seeing through the world with clarity. Every moment of awareness is a crack in the cage. Every act of remembrance is a step beyond the wheel. So hold this question close. Would I recognize the false light? Would I walk into it? Or would I look beyond it? Don't answer it once and forget it. Carry it with you. Let it shape how you live, how you see, how you choose. Because the training ground for liberation is not tomorrow. It is the present moment, even as you watch this video. And if you've made it this far and would like to go deeper into these mysteries, I've created a free ebook called Escaping the Illusion: A Gnostic Guide to Mastering Reality. Inside, you'll discover practical insights and hidden teachings to help you sharpen your awareness and step outside the illusions of this world. You can download your copy for free. The link is in the description. For centuries, we've been told that death leads either to heaven or hell. But the Gnostics revealed a more liberating truth. Both are illusions, designed to lure the soul back into the cycle. We've traced their ancient teachings, from the secret texts hidden in desert caves to the whispered warnings of mystics who refused to bow to the rulers of this world. We've explored the illusion itself, the false light, the cosmic judgment, the endless wheel of karma, and we've uncovered how awareness, remembrance, and inner gnosis become the keys to freedom. But as the Gnostics remind us, no one can walk this path for you. No priest, no guru, no system of belief will break the cycle. The only thing that can pierce the veil is your own awakened recognition. The question is not what happens after death, it is who will you be when it arrives. Will you follow the comforting voices without question, or will you pause and remember? Will you step into the light of the illusion, or turn toward the higher radiance beyond it? Perhaps the way you live, the choices you make, and the awareness you cultivate each day all play a crucial part in whether your soul will be deceived by the false light. Because the soul that remembers cannot be trapped. The soul that awakens cannot be deceived. And perhaps that's the greatest secret of all. The prison has never been stronger than your own attention. The moment you turn it inward, the walls begin to crumble. So as you leave this video, carry this thought with you. Death is not the end, not the beginning. It is the test. And the key has always been within you. To remember, it is to awaken. To forget is to return again, until the soul recalls its truth. If this message resonated with you, share your reflections in the comments. What do you believe awaits beyond the veil? And if you found this exploration valuable, remember to like this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the Gnostic Eye for more deep dives into hidden wisdom every week. Stay awake, stay aware, and ask yourself, when the light appears, will you remember? For the journey does not end at the grave. What comes next is a test of memory, courage, and recognition. Only those who hold the spark within will pass through.